Well, today the BJP said the government is looking absolutely helpless on the repeated attacks on Indians in Australia. The political debate is coming up in just 2 minutes, but before that, the Australian government is in denial. No doubt about it, about these attacks. But the attack on an Indian religious symbol has raised concerns across the world. Times Now's correspondents globally send us these reports on how the Indian diaspora is now responding to these continuing attacks.
The heart of race hotbed, Melbourne, saw another race attack. This time not on an Indian, but an Indian symbol. An attack that has raised concern, not just within Australia.
India has asked the Australian government to take immediate action to help curb the violence against its citizens living here in Australia, warning that the attacks could strain relations between the two countries. We've taken to the streets of Sydney to ask the Indian community what their thoughts are on these issues.
We come here for education. We are not trying to harass them. So I don't think so it's good they are harassing us and they are making racism and something. I really don't like that one.
Aware about our problems because we don't need anything else. Just we need a protection.
It's not just in Melbourne, the city where the attack took place, but across the Australian cities like here where I am in Gold Coast, that one can really sense the unease that is growing amongst the Indian community.
It might happen to me or it might happen to my brother or someone who's an Indian. So this is not right, and I think the Indian government basically back home, and they have to negotiate with the Australians here and see that safety of every Indian is basically looked after.
We've never been racist to them, and I don't know why they've been racist to us.
Oh, I think it's disgusting. It's disgusting when it happens to anyone, really. I mean, it's just inhumane.
But this attack has had resonance among Indian communities across the world.
The Indian community here in London, thousands of miles away from Melbourne, might be far from the scene of the crime, but that has not stopped the community from feeling a sense of outrage and demanding that the government does more.
From London across to New York, the demand growing.
Here where I am in Gold Coast, that one can really sense the
Fears, anger, even desperation. With one single demand from New Delhi: act. With Bureau Inputs, Vikram Sawant, Times Now.
On News Hour tonight, Rajiv Rudi, who accused this government of being helpless, and he said earlier today, the Prime Minister must intervene. But my first question is to you, Abhishek Manu Singhvi. Government is speaking in one voice. Congress party is speaking in another. Why this, why can't the government be firm as far as Australia is concerned?
Arnab, let me very quickly say that there is no question but to share the concern of everyone, including the BJP, but to go ahead and condemn it. The government condemns it, the Congress condemns it, these kind of things. After all, the Sikhs, to take one example, are the torch bearers of a very proud civilization. The first state senator in USA was a Sikh in the early 20s. Having said that, you have to keep one thing in perspective. The BJP can't make political debating points like this. What has been done? The Prime Minister, the Minister, the Foreign Minister, several other ministers have condemned earlier events. Condemned. Hot words have been exchanged with the Australians.
But
their people have received our advisories. We have indicated that if things do not improve immediately, we might have to take more drastic action by way of advising our citizens.
Dr. Singhvi,
now what can we do? Can we have war with them, or can we impose sanctions on them?
You can, well, some will say we need to argue from a position of strength because it is Australia that cannot afford strained relations with India, not the other way around. Or at least more Australia.
Absolutely. We are arguing for a position of strength.
Rajiv Rudi.
I agree with you, Arnab. Just 1 second. Arnab, one second. I agree with you. We should talk from a position of strength, and we are doing that. There is no question of being a supplicant. Just consider, everything possible has been conveyed to them, and they know that migration
they are not doing anything.
And investment there would be affected.
They haven't even accepted.
That's the whole problem with sovereignties.
A country, I'll go to Rajiv Rudi next, but a country that did not fall into recession because of the large part of sales of local minerals and other resources to big countries like India and China, Australia was saved from recession because of us, is not even accepting this is racist. That seems to be an area of concern. Okay, Rajiv Rudy. Abhishek Manu Singhvi says you are just interested in making it political.
I can understand Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi has to defend the government. It's all fair. But what we are concerned today is the helplessness. In last 10 days, this is the 4th incident. And in last 12 months, there have been more than 100 cases. I understand there is a diplomacy between the two nations, but why this helplessness? Earlier, individuals were a victim and they were attacked. Now it's our faith which is being attacked. It's the identity of a country which is being attacked. And when this happens, it's across political lines, and I'm sure Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi would be equally concerned. But we want to have something coming from the top, a strong stand from the Prime Minister of this country. Our simple question is, why is the Prime Minister so helpless? Why is the government so helpless? Why is the Prime Minister keeping quiet? And these are some of the issues. There are the largest population of students there is of the Chinese. Right. More than 130,000 students. We have not even heard a single case of a Chinese student. Why only Indians? So we want to, the country wants to know why only India and Indians. So if the Prime Minister could come forth, we would be very happy. If Mr. Manu Singhvi could say something, we would be very happy.
No, but question is therefore, Abhishek Manu Singhvi.
Can I just?
Why aren't you escalating it? No, he wants you to escalate it. He says it's not working out at the level of SM Krishna. You got to escalate it.
Yes. I started the program by saying that I share Mr. Rudy's and the BJP's concern. In fact, we go ahead. If there's any doubt, I again unequivocally condemn it here on your program. And we've done it earlier. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to score a point that merely the Prime Minister saying it will mean that the Government of India is acting. Each of his ministers have spoken. It means that the Prime Minister, government has spoken. Well, so the Prime Minister is much a part of that sentiment. Don't go on a technicality that he hasn't spoken himself.
No, but look at say the comment of Shashi Tharoor.
Now let's look at the specifics. I would be welcome. I would be happy if Mr. Rudy was to give a concrete, doable suggestion of what can be done. Look, the Australians have a very clear message that if very soon these things don't diminish and stop, they are going to suffer A in terms of migrations, B in terms of students, C in terms of investment. They know that.
No, but they're not accepting it.
Beyond that, I think short of... No, but they may not, you see, they may not officially accepting it officially.
No, but you have to put the pressure.
It is not possible for India to ensure a stand articulated by them in the way we formulate it. It will not be easy for you or not as a country to say that we accept that racist attacks are happening in our country.
No, but I am only quoting.
I agree with you that they are probably racist.
No, Rajiv Rudy wants to respond one more time, but before that, let me just quote Shashi Tharoor for you, Abhishek Singhvi. Shashi Tharoor says, this is his quote, the whole racism issue has colored this debate in an unhealthy way. Because even Shashi Tharoor is saying it's not racism. Because, 1 minute, he says, because when our media either seizes on that or the Australian media in turn responds critically, we are essentially dealing with not black or brown or white but red herrings. So I don't understand in the English language what Shashi Tharoor was trying to say there. But he does not have the same direct approach that you have expressed on the show tonight, Dr. Singhvi. He does.
I can only say what I can say. I have told you very clearly.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Rajiv Rudy wants to respond. You go ahead.
Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, the country appreciates. Now the Ministry of External Affairs, on the behest of the External Affairs Minister, said that the media must exercise restraint. Do you want to say that whatever is happening in Australia today should not be publicized back home in India? We should not make comments. We should not put up a political pressure on the government. We should not ask the Prime Minister. The media should not report it. Simply your condemnation. Is it a solution? Does it not reflect the helplessness of the nation? So these are the questions which is not only in my mind. It is coming in the minds of many people, because the second largest student community or the community in Australia is Indians after the Chinese. We don't hear anything about the Chinese. My question is, why only Indians? So if you could address, or the Prime Minister could say, even the External Affairs Minister would be happy. We are concerned about the safety of our citizens there. So that's the point. I'm not trying to score a political point. It's a matter of concern for the government. We are also concerned.
Briefly, Dr. Singhvi.
We'll have to use our diplomacy against them.
Yeah, I actually see consensus emerging.
Diplomacy failing.
I actually see consensus between the two
parties.
Why
is diplomacy failing? Why are we seen so weak? Why is India seen so weak, my friend?
Get your point. Let him respond to you.
Why is India seen so weak?
Let him respond to you, sir. Yeah, go ahead. Dr. Singhvi.
Rajiv has just itemized a series of things which he says we should not do. I want to ask you sincerely, and I want to ask him, have I said that we should do any of those things? Not one of them. I am not agreeing. I never said that the media should not report. No. 1 minute. Let me complete. Let me complete. No, let me complete.
Gentlemen. The Ministry of External Affairs has asked... 1 minute. I have not said anything. It's the Ministry of External Affairs which has asked the media to exercise restraint.
I know.
Mr. Manu Singhvi, please don't misquote me. It is the Ministry of External Affairs which has said that. So I am just repeating that. I am not...
Let him briefly respond to you, Rajiv.
I am repeating what the Ministry of External Affairs...
Rajiv, let him briefly respond to you. Because I have to move on.
Yeah, it's okay.
I wish... how can I be brief? Because even my brief responses are being interrupted. I have no time left. I don't want to speak simultaneously with somebody else. Rajiv, what I am saying is that no ministry of the government of India has said that the media should not report. What one statement came, which was only that you should not sensationalize. That's a difference of degree. There's no question about reporting such nonsense.
No, I will intervene at this point.
The burning the media sensationalizes.
Point two. The very fact that despite my very specific set of condemnations and things and action taken, you and your party are not able to give a single concrete doable suggestion. I repeat, if it's constructive, I will personally ensure that it goes to the quarters that be, the powers that be. But you know, frankly, you have, just 1 minute, frankly, you have the same limitations as we do for a foreign country.
No, gentlemen, I see...
Except saying that what I am saying should be repeated by the Prime
Gentlemen, I'm actually seeing consensus. Gentlemen, I'm actually intervening to say, I'm intervening to say, Rajiv, this debate I'm actually saying here, and I'm putting this on record, I see besides the fine points of the debate, I see consensus between the BJP and the Congress. Question is, what does the government do? So let's wait to see what the government does. This debate will carry on the other side, and we'll be joined by some of our guests who have personal experiences recently of what's been happening down under. Back with that story on the Gurdwara attack and more in 2 minutes. The big story on Times Now is again from Australia, where unidentified men in what is seen to be a plain racist attack this time set fire to an under construction Gurdwara. This has once again happened in Melbourne. We've been playing those pictures, and again there is a political debate over it. The pressure is there on Australia to accept this is racist, but they are saying it's only arson. Let me welcome on the show this evening, we've got G. Parthasarthi joining us from New Delhi. I'd like to welcome Padma Rao, who's joining us from New Delhi. Padma Rao is the South Asia Bureau Chief of Der Spiegel magazine. Also with us is Shobha De, who has recently come back from Australia and has a personal experience of what's happening down under. Sohail Seth, who has strong views on this subject. And we also have Keith Vaz, who's a member of parliament, and he's joining us from the UK, where he is a British MP. Thank you all so much for joining me on the show this evening. Introductory comments from you. Okay, let me get you into this. Padma Rao, to you first. What is your position on it? You've taken a position that you can't, in an outright way, say that incidents like this are racist. Am I reading you correctly, and would you still say that after today's incident?
Yes, Adnan. In fact, I was following the remarks of Mr. Manu Singhvi earlier on, and I must agree that, you know, never mind what the opposition says, whether the Australian government, I'm sure the Australian government has ample laws to address crime in its own territory, but whether it does that effectively or not, there is really simply no way that a foreign government such as India can control. You could use arm twisting mechanisms, as you could, you know, perhaps over in other realms of bilateral cooperation, but more than that, there's really very little an outside government can do. So there's no use in the media, you know, raising the pitch, and the political opposition raising the pitch and demanding that the Indian government does something. As far as I'm concerned, I think statements emanating from various officials prove that everyone is trying to do whatever they can within their capacity.
Well, the question is not the attempt, the question is the acceptance. Contrary point of view, let me take Shobha De on this. You've had a different experience recently.
I'm completely shocked and aghast at the tepid response from our government. I think where teeth were needed to be shown, or what was indicated was a kind of a weak-kneed, almost a shameful response.
What do you want to see?
What is a racial attack?
You want
There
them...
have been racial attacks, 400 students in 1 year. Come on, what are we talking about? I'm a friend of Australia. I've been there several times. I was there just last month. What I experienced, what my son experienced, I don't know what else to call it. To be at each airport, there were 3 airports, to be singled out for explosive sensor attack searches, to be in a lobby of a 5-star hotel, to be followed in an elevator by 3 young men who needed him in that elevator. And this,
is that racist?
Is that racist, or is it just sort of random attacks on someone?
Okay.
Apart from all of that, our reaction has been shockingly inept. And for whatever reason, we are in denial mode. The Australian government is in denial mode as well.
I want to
It
get
is racist.
I want to get in Mr. Parthsarthi and Sohail said, but before that I go to my guest in London this evening. Keith Vaz, this does not happen in the UK. If in the UK there were 400 attacks on students of Indian origin or Indians in 1 year, that's more than 1 attack a day, would you be more concerned?
I'd be absolutely astonished, and it would represent a very, very serious situation. It sounds like a real problem out there, and it is something that needs to be addressed. It's certainly not something that should be allowed to continue unchecked, and a proper dialogue with the Australian government and an understanding as to why these attacks are happening and what motivates people to attack people who happen to be of Indian origin, who are studying very peaceably and peacefully in Australia. Of course it needs to be looked at. If it happened here, there would be very serious questions raised, not just in Parliament, but with the police, with the prosecuting authorities, to make sure these attacks stopped.
Okay, so you don't agree with that view that was expressed right on top, that it is not our business. We can't do anything about what's happening.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I think that I think if there are people of Indian origin who happen to be studying in another country, I think it is in a sense a duty on the host country to make sure that they are safe.
Okay.
And if we have figures of this kind, 400 attacks, it sounds like an enormous number of people who have been attacked in this way. And of course, action does need to be taken. I certainly, for one, will be asking the Australian High Commissioner for an explanation as to what's happening. Even though they're not British citizens, they are still Indian citizens. And I hope that appropriate action will be taken.
Right. G. Parthsarthi was with us just a few days back. Mr. Parthsarthi, you said at that point of time, also look at which institutes these people, I mean, in the context of earlier attacks, not this one, which institutes these people go into, what they do, whether they live in the kind of areas where there are high crime rates, etc. But you know, this seems to be a direct focused attack. It's not one person in a bad area. This is an attack on a Gurdwara. And it's a willful attack, probably thought out and planned.
Arunab, let me say, an attack on a religious place of worship or a desecration to me is unacceptable. And I think I go along with Mr. Vaz. This has to be taken beyond governments. We are all members of the Commonwealth, and let me say, I find that Australians themselves, the more liberal-minded ones, are coming around that there's something wrong. Now, for example, Simon Marginson, who is from Melbourne, the University of Melbourne, an extremely eminent professor, has actually at the World University Forum in Davos gone to the extent of saying that his government is in denial and it is trying to spin itself out of a crisis.
That's true.
So I think, yes, we have to take it up directly. I go along with the others that merely mouthing this to the Australians is not enough. I think the time has come informally to sound out the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth has forums to deal with racism. More important, we should serve notice that we have a representative who is in the UN Committee for Racism. He does not function on behalf of the government, but certainly he brings to bear great moral pressure, and furnish him with material to take this forward. This necessarily, as Mr. Vaz says, as a responsible parliamentarian, has to be done diplomatically, but I think this has gone beyond just India and Australia. It's a violation of the principles on which the Commonwealth is founded, and we can bring in other governments to bear to bring pressure. I accept what the government says, that there are limits to directly talking or sending protest notes, But I think the time has come to
direct action.
Make it clear to the Australians that we will influence world public opinion to regard them to be racist.
But why? I
of course have different reasons which I will not go into here about why Chinese are not singled out and the Indians are, or why the Vietnamese are not singled out and the Indians are. That's a different issue. But even on the students issue, I have for long advocated from the day I was High Commissioner that I expected this to blow out of control, and that we'd have to have a certain regulatory mechanism because of Australian greed to make education
a business. I understand your
rather than a medium for
I understand your
making
point.
people come up in life.
Are we therefore saying here, and Shobha has a question, I'll come to you Shobha, but I want to go to Sohail Seth who hasn't spoken yet. Are we saying here that we all agree that when, say, we were reporting non-stop since May that there is attack after attack, first there was denial, then there was this whole business of, that this is a red herring, you have nothing to prove, it's racism. And then there was this concerted attempt to finger point at the media and say media is hysterical. Even the government issued some kind of advisory to the media. Today we are saying that it's real and we need to be direct. So Sohail Seth has constantly taken that point of view, so I just want to go to you for introductory comments, Sohail. Would you like to respond, say, to the first point that was made there, that we can't do anything? I think Padma Rao said that we can't do anything about what's happening in another country.
Yeah, but Padma is only echoing the state of our governance from time immemorial. Whenever confronted with a problem, we put our hands up and say, we can't do anything. We want others to do things for our own people, for our own citizens. I agree with Partha, I agree with what Keith Vaz said. The point is, how long are you going to wait? How many more Gurdwaras must be burnt? How many more Indians must die at the altar of avarice and greed?
I'll come to you, Padma.
I mean, is this government in cuckoo land? Are we in denial? Does S.M. Krishna not realize that there is an insurmountable problem which needs to be addressed? And I agree, if you're raising it at a particular forum, Commonwealth, to my mind, with all due respect to the Commonwealth and the Games, which may or may not happen, is irrelevant. The point is, you've got to shame brand Australia globally. You've got to put a spin on it. You've got to call them racist. You've got to say that these people are not liberal or as liberal as they seem to be. The only way Australia will buckle is if they are economically threatened. You've got to put an advisory not to the country but to your citizens from not going there.
Okay, Sohail, Padma wants to respond to you.
To migrate.
Let them respond to you. Padma first.
Yeah. Adnam, I just want to say that, before we straight away jump the gun and hold kangaroo courts thousands of miles away from any scene of crime, I want to remind all of us that 4 of 6 offenders found guilty of a similar attack on a Gurdwara in May last year in Vienna, in Austria, where there is hardly a sizable number of Indian immigrants, as that country has no immigration policy comparable to Australia. 4 out of those 6 were NRI asylum seekers. The other 2 were also Indians. They had entered Austria illegally. So where does that leave this argument that every attack on every Indian globally can only be a racially motivated one? The point I'm trying to make is there are many complex triggers to incidents like this. Robbery is one, racism is another. But rather than slamming 22 million Australians as racist, and Australians slamming 1.5 million of us as Jingo is taking, we need dialogue. That's all I'm saying.
Padma is right. Padma is right. Kangaroo court is an apt word for what's happening in Australia. Padma is absolutely right. All these attacks are a matter of coincidence. They just happen to Indians who are actually found loitering on the streets asking for trouble, putting on their foreheads, please come and kill me, I'm Indian. I mean, are we in denial? The reality is, please don't compare this to what happened in Austria. We are not saying all attacks are racist. And I want to make one important point. Perception often is reality. The perception, even in the Australian media, and please read the editorials in the Australian, even the Australian media has gone on to say that these are racist attacks and some action needs to be taken. Now, not every of the 400 attacks may be racist, but the general perception is that it's racism.
After a lot of having been pushed, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Padma, one minute. I know this debate between you and Sohail, it will get more interesting, but we need to come to substantive conclusions tonight. How are we going to deal with it? How are we going? Is there an endemic problem we are dealing with? And Mr. Vaz, I want to hear from you. In London, how tough do you think India can get? Specifically,
it is a very serious problem. I think it is primarily for the Indian government to raise its representations with the Australian government. After all, India supported and as did Britain, Australia hosting the next Commonwealth Conference,
Truly.
which will be in Australia. I think good relations between Commonwealth countries is very important. I certainly, for one, even though it's not happening in Britain, I will certainly raise this with the Indian High Commissioner in London to ask for an explanation as to precisely what the Australian government is doing. This is a serious problem. It does need addressing, otherwise these attacks will continue.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's Shobha, they had a question for G. Parthasarathy on this subject. Go ahead, why don't you make a...
Sir, I just wanted to ask you, I'd heard your news hour some time ago, where you almost said that our students there asked for it because they were from the hinterland, they were from the Punjab somewhere, they didn't know how to conduct themselves, they were taking on jobs. Is
What
that
rubbish.
a crime or
Okay.
a sin? Are students not allowed to moonlight and get that extra income because they don't have the money in a very expensive destination? So I was really very surprised at the insensitivity of that remark, that if you aren't an Oxbridge type, you are asking to be attacked.
Okay, let him respond.
Yeah.
Let him respond. Let him respond. Go on, sir.
Let me answer Ms. Shobha Dey as to what precisely I said. First of all, I don't condone Australian racism. Violence in any form is abhorrent to me and has to be dealt with it. I merely said that Australian greed is going to lead to a large number of people seeking illegal immigration coming in the garb of students. Secondly, that in many cases, and I'm talking, Ms. Dey, on the basis of what I was told by the Indian community in Sydney and Melbourne. This is not by briefings from Australians. That many of these guys don't attend school or college at all, spend most of their time moonlighting, bring in wives to join them.
No.
It is an illegal immigration racket. All I am saying is, it is for the
Well,
Australians to
I was
regulate
there
this
less than a
in a
month
manner
ago.
that genuine students go there. People are permitted to work.
I was there
Just
less
a
than a
minute.
month ago, sir.
People are
I
permitted
met
to
a lot
work.
of these people.
But
I met a lot of
when you
cabbies.
go to a country, you have to observe
No,
the
no, no,
laws
okay.
of that country.
No, but what is...
I'd just like to say this, that I met a lot of the students there, a lot of them who were working there as cabbies too, and what they said to me was, in a way, pretty shocking about the overall treatment that they're subjected to, how they've been cheated, that what they go there for,
Yeah.
and what courses that have been offered to them. They paid good money, their parents have spent their life savings, and they are cheated out of that because those courses actually are not
Precisely
even
what I am saying.
So
That is
so you're
precisely
saying
what I am
because
saying.
they've been tricked,
I
they
am
should be
saying
killed?
the Australians are
So what is
cheating
the
you.
government? Our government has
You are
handled
being
it
led up the
so-
garden path by people who are making what they call as a dhanda out of education.
No, but...
And therefore, you have
So
to,
they're doubly
we have to pass
victimized.
No,
regulations
I'm putting
so that
fundamental...
they go for serious educational courses,
No, I'm putting
not
two-
get cheated.
I'm putting
so
two
it's cheating
fundamental
by the
questions.
Australian side, and our boys get
No,
go the wrong way.
I'm seeing a lot of reactions
unless
coming
you
in.
regulate education with an intergovernmental agreement
No,
with
no, but
Australia, you're going to have this problem.
I'm seeing a lot of reactions come in, so I'm just saying to all our viewers, we're going to extend this by a few more minutes. I can see you there, Padma and Sohail both want to respond to this. Question is here tonight. Question is tonight, can you draw any link between a so-called illegal immigration racket and the attacks down under? Even if you're an illegal immigrant, you don't deserve to be killed and attacked. That's the basic argument some would put. So I'm just articulating that.
Correct.
Okay, what's the situation we are dealing with? We are getting the vote in on that subject. Overwhelming majority feel we have not put enough pressure on the Australian government here. Sohail and Padma, before I come to you, and I know you want to come in here. In one case, a 19-year-old was killed. The killer said he had bashed a nigger and I think he's dead. In this one particular case, even in this case, the judge in Australia was not satisfied the attack was racially motivated. So what are we talking about? They're obviously not going to accept it. Then what do we do? Then what do we do, Padma and Sohail? Let me come to you both. Sohail first and then Padma, I know you want to respond. What do we do? If they just, 1 year from now, they just say, oh no, it's not racist, what do we do? Do we just keep complaining?
Look, let's get real. No country is going to admit that it's racist. So they will garb it under a law and order problem. I think there are three things that need to be done. Number one, we need to issue an advisory to our students or our people who are going there. B, we need to, through our consular offices, galvanize the local Indian community. People like Keith Vaz and all did a damn good job when there were racial slurs on Shilpa Shetty. I mean, that apart from the fact that he made a win, Big Boss or Big Brother, whatever it was, is a compliment. But Keith Vaz and people like him stood up. And the third thing is, you've got to threaten economic outrage.
That's the point.
I think what we are doing is, we may be making all the right diplomatic noises, but then for a country which was born out of convicts transferring from England, they're not going to be so excited and so enamored by just diplomaties.
No, let's not also be personal with them in return. So I'll caution them. Padmaya. What?
Aruna,
one minute, Mr. Patsati first, then I'll come.
Let me answer Sohail. All I'm saying is, the High Commission and others have tried to get the Indian community energized on this matter. The Indian community does not want to defend many of these students.
No, but that's
bad. That is the reality. It is not the situation you have in UK.
That's
the Indian community in Sydney to whom I've spoken.
I agree with you.
They are not willing to stand up for these students.
I agree, but you may have a point, but that doesn't mean we don't stand up for them. No, but that doesn't mean we don't stand up for them. Yes, Padma.
Arnab, the constructive question on this debate and many other debates
I say we stand up for them, yes.
What could both governments be done jointly? One of the solutions, as Suhail suggests, could be to launch massive awareness campaigns and programs authored and designed by both Indians and Australians who have a thorough knowledge of each other's country's social mores and cultural peculiarities. But I agree with Ms. Shobha Dey that Mr. Parthasarathy is wrong in just throwing all eggs into one basket and saying that, everyone who goes there is only going there to migrate. That cannot be true. If awareness campaigns, if we can launch India Shining and Incredible India on the scale that they have been launched, why aren't both governments doing more to launch
because Padma, right now the Australians are in a state of denial.
Launch battleships and
no. If you want to launch
the suggestion,
Padma.
But on the other hand, Arnab, the suggestion that has come from many other people, not on this debate.
No, Padma, you can launch an awareness campaign.
Hop onto battleships and attack Australia. Is that the suggestion?
No, I agree.
There has to be some sort of a concrete suggestion emanating from
one second, Padma. You can launch an awareness campaign when somebody accepts there is a problem. The situation in Australia right now is no problem. This is normal.
How can you? No.
They are saying this is normal. This is arson.
How can you say that?
Isolated crime.
No. How can you say? Look,
you have to accept the fact that there is a problem.
Australia's population is 22 million.
No, you are reeling statistics there.
of Australians are born outside Australia.
Padma, you are reeling statistics.
Please listen
That's
to
not
me.
the point.
No, if you would
Look,
stop interrupting, you would allow me to speak. You would allow me to make my point. Indians represent the second largest group of foreign students in Australia.
We're aware of that.
Educating foreign students earns Australia 15.5
all of this we are aware of
every year.
We know that.
We know that. That is the third largest revenue earner after coal and iron. There is burgeoning bilateral trade between India and Australia.
We don't need an advertisement for Australia, for God's sake.
If you know that, why would Canberra or any other country not take attack